Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of Oche 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 with me, Dylan Williams. It's been a while since our last episode, but we're back, and we're back with a bang, if I'm honest, with a great guest for you. Today's guest has an impressive CV, if I'm honest. She's an award-winning radio DJ. She's an enthusiastic and passionate host and presenter, a creative voiceover artist. And then during lockdown, she became a mother to a little girl. And started her own business, a clothing range called House of Indie. And if that wasn't enough, you know, she's the latest addition to the Sky Sports darts team. So it gives me a great pleasure to welcome Polly James to the show. You okay, Polly?
Oh, thanks, Dill. I sound very scatty. I do a lot of stuff. It's not that impressive. I've just got a lot, I suppose, a lot of time on my hands. And when you do like radio DJing, you sort of, you can do lots of other little bits surrounding it, like the hosting, and when you've got time off during the lockdown and maternity leave, that's when I did my little, you made out that I was a big entrepreneur, right? I'm just doing it from my bedroom, but no, the tie-dye thing is something that I'm very passionate about. And yeah, and now the darts are kicking off as well, so no, it's awesome. But yeah, lush to be here and talk darts with you.
Yeah, oh no, brilliant. Thanks for giving up your time. You know, the introduction, obviously, you know, things you've had to work hard for them. Things haven't just sort of fallen into place for you. So take me back to the start. How did it all sort of start? What was your introduction to sort of radio and broadcasting?
Well, gosh, I mean, I was probably about 19 or 20, and I was working as a promo girl. I had no idea about the radio industry. I was just, I guess, a person who listened to radio. I was a fan, I was a punter. And then my mum sent me, it was a paper cutting of a roadrunner job at my local radio station, Red Dragon, where I am right now. And I thought, oh, this is pretty good. So this was 2 regular days a week of work. And, you know, and I can scream about how good the radio station is. I thought, yeah, I can do that. Let's do it. And from there, I just sort of fell in love with I suppose the thing I was looking for in my life. Perhaps I was, as I say, like a little bit scatty beforehand, but radio kind of made sense to me a little bit, and I clicked with it, and I made a beeline for where I wanted to be. I got on well because I don't think I had any, you know, preconceived ideas. I didn't have any bad habits. I got stuck in straight away. I was ready to learn and master my craft and get my hands dirty, you know. To be fair, I think I was a bit of a bull in a china shop. I had found my calling. And I've been in love ever since, and it's been my longest, most rewarding relationship. And I love the connection that radio brings to me and listeners. And then I kind of naturally, as you mentioned in the intro, you sort of get into hosting and you get into presenting and interviewing and DJing. And I guess people think, you know, you can do all of those things if you can do one of them, you know?
Yeah. So was that something you were kind of, when you were in school, you were thinking, I'd like to go into the industry, or was it something that kind of developed later in sort of life?
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, it was literally, I was just working as a promo girl, and I had, as I say, I listened to the radio as a punter. You know, I had no desire to be on the radio. I had no desire to be a presenter. It was really bizarre. I think looking back now, it scares me, because when I was sort of like 18, 19, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was kind of sort of happy-go-lucky. I moved up to London when I was 18 with my sister to do promo stuff, and that was good for me. And I thought maybe there's a bit of a future here, but you know, yeah. And then it just sort of all fell into place. Like I said, it was kind of a bit of a, oh wow, I found my calling. This is great. This is what I'm going to do, you know. So yeah, it was very by accident, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I ran with it. And yeah, I'm lucky I found my passion, and I love what I do every day.
So how was that to deal with as a 19-year-old? Obviously, the face of Red Dragon. You would have been a celebrity in South Wales. You know, you were being heard across the airwaves. You know, how was it to deal with walking down the street, sort of thing? Were people recognizing you?
This is the great thing about radio, Dill. You know, everyone just knows your voice. And you know what, that is funny, because actually when I never actually was on Red Dragon. I was just doing road running shifts for Red Dragon.
Okay.
And then afterwards, I sort of worked on a community radio station in Port Talbot, Avon FM as it was known. And then a year after, I started working for Bridge FM, part of the Nation radio groups. And then I worked on Absolute Radio for a couple of years. And it was only after Absolute Radio being on that station for a couple of years then I came back to Cardiff onto Red Dragon, which was then rebranded as Capital. So I think that's where I was more, I guess you could say, like, well known. But I was broadcasting to, you know, my hometown, and I guess, you know, you're doing the breakfast show, a lot of people know of you and they know your voice, and they don't really know your face. But I guess people started to, because you go to so many events and you host so many events, and then you're all on social media because that's what the job entails. You've got to be out there and you've got to be doing stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, it was nice because when you meet people, they sort of, you know, relay stories back to you. They're like, oh, I remember you talking about that with Matt, and I remember you chatting up the Starbucks man on the drive-through or something, you know. So it was nice. As I say, you know, I love that connection that radio gives. That's what I thrive on. You know, I used to miss it whenever I did the day off or like a week off. I used to really miss that sort of sense of connection.
But it's obviously the platform that catapulted you then to these other roles, which I mentioned in the introduction, you know, the hosting, presenting. Can you tell us a little bit, you know, your first sort of gigs, how did they go, and how have you developed into being somebody who's so confident at doing them?
Do you know what? It was, I think it was definitely whilst being on Capital. I vividly remember actually saying to, you know, my marketing and sponsorship sort of managers, saying, look, you know, get me out there to do, you know, hosting events or host, because we used to see, me, Matt and Geraint, we used to sort of host, you know, the fireworks, and you know, you'd get on stage, and even though, you know, I never trained for that, or that wasn't what I went into, you just sort of just pick it up naturally, you know. I or maybe that's how it happened for me, but we did, you know, sort of like the fireworks, or you do, you know, like the football games or the rugby games, and I guess I just found it easy. And then obviously, you know, being in Wales, we're a big nation of, well, we're not a big nation, but I mean, you know, we are big enough, but I guess there wasn't a lot of presenters out there, especially women, I suppose, who are confident enough to go on stage or confident enough to speak to, you know, big sports stars. And I just thrived on it, and I took every opportunity, and I to a certain extent, I created opportunities for myself as well, you know, and I networked as well. You know, I worked my ass off. I grafted, you know, and I always say to people coming into the industry, into radio, it's like, you know, we don't work hard. We're not like nurses. We're not doctors. We're not teachers. But, you know, it's all about being really proactive and networking and meeting people and putting yourself in places and creating opportunities and having a bit of an imagination, you know.
Yeah. So looking back to that 18, 19-year-old Polly, would you have done anything different? Or if you were advising somebody at that stage now, what would be that one sort of key message?
Do you know what? I think if and it's like, obviously I've got my daughter now. So I think if I was sort of explaining to her, if she was coming in to the industry, I would just say to her, as I am in my life now, you know, just keep good people around you, keep having fun, work hard, be kind. I know they're super basic things, but it's so true. Good people, a nice circle around you, create and take the opportunities, know your own worth, have confidence in your own ability. And, you know, I'm still learning. I'm always learning, and I love it, you know.
Oh, brilliant. And, you know, obviously, obviously you come from that sort of music background, but your career has taken you down this sort of sporting journey where you've, let's not beat around the bush, you've interviewed some of the biggest sports stars in the world, in Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. You know, I've obviously done a lot of research for today preparing, but how do you approach walking into a room with somebody like Tyson Fury? How do you prepare yourself?
Well, I plan meticulously, Dill, genuinely, because I never want to be caught out. I over research, but more often than not, and you probably realize this as well, as when you do your interviews, that you end up just having a conversation anyway, which just flows naturally, and everything you have written down just goes out the window, you know. It's easy to interview the likes of Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, for example, because there's so many obvious things that you can ask them, you know. But I also know it's a huge responsibility. I know I'm in a very privileged position to be asking questions that so many fans would love to ask them. So I you know, I try to open it up. I always ask on Twitter or on my Instagram, you know, if any super fans out there have got any questions. But, you know, I tend to think, like, you know, these guys are just human. Like, Tyson Fury is just a real normal guy. I know that's really cliche to say, but he's really down to earth, but he really is. Like, compared to AJ, when I interviewed AJ, he's got such a huge team around him, and rightly so. You know, he was heavyweight champion at the time, and you know, he was on top of the world, and I didn't have that time with him beforehand. You know, he was locked in a room with all of his entourage and stuff, and that's fine. But with Tyson, the first time I interviewed him, I've been lucky enough to sort of do a lot of Q&As with him, but the first time I interviewed him, it was actually at a very poignant time in his career. He was sort of on the brink of retire. In fact, during that night with me, he sort of retired a couple of times and then came back and then retired. But it was at that point in time where he was, gosh, maybe almost 30 stone. I think I'm doing him some injustice there, maybe 25 stone. But he was, you know, he was out. He was very depressed. He was having his, you know, he was getting looked at by the board. A board of boxing, whether he can box again. And yeah, it was a real tough time for him, you know. So, but sorry, my point was that he came down to Rhondda, of all places, this is where it was, from the leisure centre, and he came down in the car with his dad, jumped out, chatted to loads of people, and he was not, you know, very approachable, very friendly, talking about his wife and kids, and that was it. And he, you know, he was a really nice man and friendly man, and he's been like that ever since, even after the Wilder fight, the first fight, when he sort of got up from the dead. Woke up from the dead, but he was lovely again there, and now I get the chance to sort of do it all again on the 5th of December. So excited. It makes my job a lot easier. But the bigger names, they are very easy to interview because there's so much to talk about, you know. You ask them a question. So what do you think about AJ? Is he going to fight again? Is he going to be heavyweight champion of the world again? And then Tyson will just sprout out for 20 minutes and you just sat there going, okay.
Exactly,
and in fact, I was booked to do a Q&A down at the Valley Tavern, and it's a lovely place, the Valley Tavern, down in Fleur-de-Lys, down Flower. And Ricky Hatton for 2 nights. So I'm there waiting, and I said to Ricky, I was like, so would you like to see my questions beforehand? We're just having a chat. He's very much like Tyson, very down to earth, just chilled. Ask him, you know, you can ask him anything, you know, and he'll just talk about it. And he goes, oh, don't worry about the questions. I'll just stand up for 45 minutes and do my set, do my routine. And I was thinking, oh, all right then. So, I mean, that I was very impressed with Ricky Hatton, because there's not a lot of elite athletes who can stand there and do a really funny, raw routine about his life, you know, his personal life and his life inside the ring as well. It was phenomenal. It was fascinating. And the audience were gripped. So yeah, that made my job very easy.
Yeah, but that's really interesting. And you know, as somebody looking from the outside, then I see AJ like a polished, very media trained sort of individual, where you have Ricky and Tyson, you know, very working class, no cliches, no, you know, it's straight. The message they give you is what's on their mind, sort of thing. Whereas Anthony would probably go try and work his way around answering something or putting himself in trouble, really, isn't it? So
yeah, no, it's true. I remember saying to him, I said, what would you say? Just I remember this because of how he answered, but I said, oh, what would you say to the people who have said that, you know, you're taking steroids and stuff? And it wasn't I didn't say it like that, but it was along those lines. And he goes, what are these questions like this? But it's because no one had ever like gone there with him before. Do you know what I mean? And I was just like, come on, guys, you know, like, this is not telly. We're giving these people out there who've paid like 75 quid a ticket. They want to know some stuff about you. They want to know we're not asking you to divulge whether you've had like taken steroids, but they want to know what your reaction is to that and how you feel. But yeah, he was a little bit more media trained than the others. And obviously that's what I love about Tyson. You know, Tyson is a mental health advocate. He is a father. He is a husband. And then last of the pile, he's a boxer, you know.
Exactly,
and yeah, that's what I love about him. He'll be forever one of my favorite sportsmen.
Brilliant. Hopefully one day we'll actually see the fight and they can settle it once and for all, then, isn't it? But time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell. Yeah, exactly.
So if we move on then to sort of more about
let's
that.
Talk darts. Let's talk darts.
Let's talk darts. So obviously, you're enthusiastic about darts, really, really passionate, but I'm not really sure where your sort of love for darts started. So,
Yeah.
was it something you watched as a family, as a kid, or was it something that developed again later in life?
Well, so the partner who I'm with right now, he's called Leighton. Myself and Late, we've been on and off, boyfriend and girlfriend, for like 15, 16 years now. So I met him when I was 19, literally just getting into radio, and I'm 35 next month. So he was really into darts when I met him. So I watched it a lot with him, and that was kind of when I really started taking proper interest, and we'd make an appointment to watch it, so to speak. But my family watched some of it, like at Christmas it was always on, and it would be kind of like, oh, the men would go and watch it in the living room, and I was a tomboy, so I would always go and watch it with them. But I mean, I became a fan like when I got with Leighton, I would say. So, and we actually always said that, we need to go and watch a live event. And that happened about 11 years ago, my first darts event, 11 years ago, Ali Pali World Championships, 2011.
Okay.
And then from there, we've been a few times. In fact, I've been probably about 5 or 6 times to the World Championships, and it's been amazing because my birthday is on the 27th of December, and it's literally the only thing happening in the darts. In between, there was like limbo days between Christmas and New Year. So we always go up, and more often than not, I'm always sort of, working on those days as well, sort of whether it be on the radio in London. So it's just always been the perfect sort of night out for us. And then, you go to your first darts match when we did in Ali Pali back, 10 years ago now, geez. And it's awesome. And it's just literally grown from there, Dill, to be fair.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that makes me like new age darts fan or like, old age. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, the product that you watched on that day 10 years ago is very, very different now to what we're seeing these days, and, I don't know how you see the future of darts going, but, how do you see the game sort of evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? Do you just see it growing even more?
Yeah, totally. I mean, oh, 1 second. Sorry. I think I've, you're still there, aren't you?
Yeah, still there. Yeah.
Right, yeah. No, I mean, gosh, I love darts because it's essentially like a fun pub game. Anyone can throw a dart, can't they?
Yeah.
And then, as you say, like it's changed so dramatically over the last sort of 10 years or so. But Sky and PDC have done that. They've turned that traditional pub game into bright lights and the theater, and it's amazing. Thousands of people go and watch a game of darts. It's crazy when you think about it. But the extras that go along with that, like the 180s, the big fish checkouts, the dances, the chants, it's amazing. And the drama and the household names, the characters. It's a big pull for the darts, and darts is not boring, and there's always something going on, and long may it continue. And I think the people behind who do it just have limitless imagination now, and let's blow it up, let's go big. I'm hoping, in the next 10 years or so, I'm hoping I'm still involved in the darts in some way. But I hope for me that the bright lights and all the dazzling details are still there. I hope we see more rivalries. I hope we get more world champions, and I mean different names into the mix. And I hope we see a woman do the business one day, and the girls feel comfortable enough go into dance clubs and joining a team. I think the future is really, really exciting. I think there's a huge amount of new fans coming on to the darts train every single year.
Yeah, I think every time I hear Barry Hearn and Matt Porter talk, they're on about new territories and Northern America, China. Once those sort of areas do get involved, it's just going to go bananas, really, isn't it?
Totally. And it's like, I feel like we've only just scraped the surface almost. It's like, doing stuff in like New York in Madison Square Garden. I think when loads of people sort of actually realize what's going on and actually go to a darting event, then it'll just be awesome. As I say, like the sky's the limit,
Exactly. So moving on from your sort of passion then of watching darts, it obviously became a profession for you when you were given an opportunity by Unibet, yes, to work on the Premier League. So how did all that come about?
So I was spouting off my usual nonsense, Dill. And I love it because you're not restrained working on radio, but there's a lot of things you don't really want to, sound off about too much, because then it can always just bite you back in the arse sometimes, and you don't want it to reflect badly on your employers and stuff, or the radio station that you're working for. But darts for me was something that I really loved, and I loved watching it with the family and stuff, with Leighton and everything. And then I get a message, a DM one day from a guy called Jack, and he used to work for Unibet.
Okay.
And he goes, you love the darts, don't you? And I was like, yeah, they're great. And this was actually, God, this must have been 2018, just after the Grand Slam with
Gezi
with
and
Gary
Gary.
Anderson. With Gezi and Gary.
Hmm.
And obviously, you must have as well, Dil. Come on, you've got to admit it. You must have had some choice words about Gary that day. Anyway, so I'm gobbing all, I'm giving it all the big one. And then he goes, oh, you love it. And then we just started talking loads, like even up until the world champs. And he said, oh, look, I work for Unibet. I knew that you did anyway. And he said, let's try and get you to do something in for the Premier League in 2009. And it was before it was me, just, as I say, being a fan, being a punter. And I remember thinking, gosh, do I like mix business with pleasure here? But I'm glad I did. Working for Unibet was super chill. Jack, obviously, you worked there at the time. He really believed in me, and I think that made a big difference. He thought I'd be great for the role, and that made me really comfortable. I think it turned out really well. I love doing it. I love doing like the post-match interviews. So I just went with it. And for me, it was kind of a piece of cake at the time, because I was a fan first and foremost. I knew what I was watching. I knew what I could ask them. Still felt, like a big responsibility, because I knew that there's so many people who would love to have had that job. But it was great. It's funny because I started doing it 2019, sort of in the middle of the Premier League. I remember we went to, maybe, was it Sheffield, Manchester, Cardiff was the big one. 2019 was brilliant, because Gezi obviously had a great homecoming, almost threw in a 9 darter, if I can remember, and the place went mad. But and then that happened, and then I got pregnant after the Premier League, probably sometime in between, which we always joke about. And actually, it's funny, way too information, but I got pregnant the night, maybe not the night of, but the night, well, kind of the night of the London Premier League, the final. Anyway, way too much information. So, but yeah, me and Jack always have a laugh about that. But then, obviously, the next year they got me back, but it was Aberdeen 2020.
Oh yeah.
So February 2020. I remember the date, 3rd of February, and I was 2 weeks away from giving birth. And Jack was like, "Come on, do you want to do it?" He didn't force me in any way, by the way, but I was like, I really want to do this. I'd already stopped working on air at X, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. My last hurrah in the darts before I, become a mum. And I thought, yeah, why not? So I couldn't travel up there by plane like everyone else was. So I got a train up there. It took about 8 hours from Cardiff. And I remember, I think he'd kill me if he knew now, but I remember saying to Jack, I've got a couple of nappies in my suitcase. I've got a baby grow, just in case I want, I was out here, Dil, honestly, I was absolutely humongous. And I remember interviewing Michael Van Gerwen and Gezi. And I remember I was like, pregnant women, they can't breathe very well, especially when they're full term. But also, I mean, it's funny talking about February 2020, because we were off from COVID, So and that was it for me. I finished on Aberdeen the week after, where was it? I can't remember where it was the week after, but obviously I'd stopped because I thought I better not. Yeah. Then the week after that, it was in Cardiff. Now I still hadn't given birth. Yeah, I still hadn't given birth. And I said to Jack, I'll pop up. I was like, I need to go for a walk to try and get this moving. And I did, and I went up there, and thankfully, I sat sort of on the tables, and I enjoyed the night. And then it was actually 2 weeks later I gave birth, because I was 2 weeks overdue. And the darts were on the telly as I was giving birth. Hilarious. But so yeah, that was it. I mean, yeah, I was all ready to give birth in Aberdeen if it was to happen. But yeah, that's my story with the Premier League. And then unfortunately, I was going to do some stuff in 2020, actually 2020, when it got back, and then 2021. But because it was all sort of behind closed doors, they were using people from the PDC.
Oh, yeah.
And just logistically, it was just all a bit of a nightmare, you know. So, and obviously I had my daughter then. So if I was to go away for 2 weeks, I'd have to isolate, you know, when it was real sort of tight restrictions. So anyway, that's the longest answer to one question. Sorry.
And you know, the sort of the draw of the Premier League, you know, it's the circus that travels around. Did you have a favourite venue or favourite atmosphere? One that sort of
Cardiff definitely was awesome. Cardiff was amazing because obviously it was Gazzy's homecoming. I had done a couple of dates before that, so you know I was really comfortable with what I was doing. I'd warmed up properly. Cardiff was great. Obviously Gazzy was there, as I say, almost chucked in that 9 darter. Everyone was he said afterwards he went out to Pop World and he had a great, you know what I mean? It was a good night, that Cardiff one, and I felt right at home. I knew I could just go back and you know, back to my house afterwards. No, it was great. But then also Aberdeen as well. They had just opened that the arena in Aberdeen. And there was about 7,000 people. And John Ando was obviously playing as well to a home crowd, and and the bagpipes were there, and there was just a nice sort of aura in the air where everyone was just super excited, you know. And like I know some people say that, you know, the Premier League is like long and whatever, and the players get knackered and it's not a true reflection of their form or whatever. But I love the Premier League. I love it, and it's just and I was, you know, very honored to work on it. So
You touched on it earlier in that answer, but you know, everything I see you do then is, you know, you're very enthusiastic, very passionate, very knowledgeable. Do you think then having that experience of being a fan, being a punter, gives you that sort of added value as a post-match interviewer?
I mean, I don't know how you can do something like that if you aren't a fan. Do you know what I mean? I would find it really difficult. Like I don't really like doing stuff. I watch boxing and I you know, I love boxing and I'll buy it on pay-per-view, and you know, I'll get stuck into the conversation, but I don't watch it as intently or take interest as intently as the darts. So therefore I wouldn't want to put myself out there to work you know, on the box channels, and same with football really. And I do work in the football field, but I don't as someone who can like interview afterwards, I suppose, because I feel like, oh God, I want to do it justice. Now I feel with darts, and you know, I hope I do it justice because I know I'm passionate about it and I love it. It's my number one sport, so to speak. But you know, I'm not an expert. I'm just a fan. I love the darts, and I think, you know, you can get caught out really easily as well, I think, if you are not a fan.
No,
do you know what I mean?
I completely agree. And especially with the number of tournaments now, you know, you stay out of the bubble for a week and you've missed out on a lot of action, you know.
Well, that's it. And do you know what, I do miss out on a lot of action because I've got so many things going on, and I think that's reality for like so many fans of it. And you sort of catching up and you're thinking, oh my God, who's won this, who's won that? And
exactly.
you know, I think you know, you've just, you know, with darts, I think, and with me, you know, I've just got to be myself. I've got to be my true authentic self. If I've missed something, then I've missed something, and I just catch up with it. And you know, I'm just honest. Or you know, if I'm watching, so even with the big tournaments, sometimes I can't be there every night just to sit down and watch it. So I'm like, right guys, what's happened? You know, say darts Twitter, help a gal out, what's going on?
Exactly.
But but I think, you know, going back to your question, I think, you know, it definitely helps being passionate and doing that interviewing, because I love the darts. It's like natural to me. So I, you know, I could just ask them anything because I you know, it's just a natural thing for me. So sorry, you know, that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean. You know, and then obviously moving on to work with Sky Sports Darts now, making your debut in the Grand Prix. You know, was it a moment sort of pinch yourself? I've actually made it now to the top table of darts broadcasting.
Yeah, it was crazy, Dill. Genuinely, I was like, it was funny because I had a message off one of the producers at Sky, and I literally thought it was a joke. Genuinely, I thought someone is like taking the piss out of me here. So I actually said to the producer, I said, I don't believe you, this is a joke, you're gonna have to email me, I need to see a Sky email.
Yeah.
And it's funny, actually, they won't mind me saying this, but I said to Michelle, my best mate is Michelle Owen, and she works for Sky Football.
Yeah.
And I said to her, will you just check this man, see if he still works at Sky? I think he does, but will you just check, like, is this his email? And like, da, da, da. Anyway, she goes, yeah, that's him. You got to call him back. So I was like, okay, I'll call him back. And then, gosh, lo and behold, I mean, I said to Leighton, I was like, I'm not going to believe it until I actually like show up and they're expecting me. But because it was such a big deal, like, as I said before, you know, with like the Q&As, like, I know like how lucky I am. I know I'm in such a privileged position, and I know I've got a big responsibility, and I just, all I ever want to do is just do it justice for the fans. You know, I just want to, like everyone, you just want to come across well, you know, and to be on that big stage, as in with Sky, it was a huge deal for me. And it was definitely like, as I said, when I sort of announced it on Twitter, I was like, this is a dream come true. It's like, wow, I can't believe I've been given the opportunity. So, and then thankfully it went all right during the Grand Prix. So I'm doing the Grand Slam next week, in 2 weeks.
Oh, well done. You really deserve it. I thought you came across really well.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice.
And you know, when I went out to ask sort of followers who they'd want on the podcast, a lot of people mentioned you, Polly, and they were interested to know, you know, what sort of happens behind the scenes. So, you know, like say the Grand Prix, for example. I think play started when you were working maybe 6 p.m. So what would your day sort of entail in the lead up to that?
So okay, so there's not really a call time, so to speak. So you've got sort of, you know, your commentator, or the broadcasting team would obviously be your commentators. Then you've got your presenters, and then you've got your reporters. So you've got I think there was maybe 4 or 6 rotating commentators. Then you've got Emma, who's your presenter, and then you've got you had, on those days, you had me as your reporter. So me and Emma rocked up, and Laura as well. There was like a little girl gang of us sort of rocking up. And actually the first day that I started, was the first day that they had makeup back on set. So we were allowed to have our makeup done because of COVID. So I was like, oh wow. So I mean, yeah, it's very surreal for me because, you know, radio is my thing. Radio is my comfort zone. So I rock up to a studio, I know exactly what I'm doing. But you know, there's so many people who make it look so seamless, you know, the whole broadcast, the whole production, and it's a well-oiled machine, and you just can't believe how it all works. It's just incredible. So sorry, you rock up at like sort of 3-4, you get your makeup done, you sort of you go through, and obviously, as I say, like, I planned meticulously. I knew exactly who what questions I could possibly ask whoever was to win. Sometimes you might not interview, depending on timings, but yeah, you sort of use that time from about 4 until 6, and then from 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock or 7, whenever it sort of kicks off, you just wait sort of side of stage, and you know, you've got to watch the action, because you've got to be sort of ready to jump on, and then and ask them the questions. So
brilliant.
It was funny because I remember the producer was like, right, so you know how to use the earpiece, and you know, you got everything set. And I was like, yeah, all good. Never used an earpiece in my life. And so I mean, you've got everyone in your ear. You've got even the gosh, are they called? I can't even remember. Are they called the spotters, like behind the scene?
Oh yeah.
So you can hear them in there as well. And that's I mean, that is the craziest thing ever. So Colin Lloyd is one of them, right? So and you have to appreciate how fast these guys work, because and how well they know these players. So I don't know. So Michael van Gerwen going triple 20, you know, he's going to go for a triple 19. So but someone who's not as obvious as that, these guys are saying to the cameraman in this like van outside, going, treble 19, treble 20, double tops, and then, but then it's sort of all within like a second, because then they change the cameras. It's just
Mad,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, within and anyway, you're hearing all of that as well, and you're hearing loads of different producers, and I had all that in my ear the first time, and then the second day I just had the broadcast stream, and then I had my producer in my ear, which was so much better because I could hear everything. But what a lovely team, and they just made me feel very, and it felt like such a crazy, stressful environment, but everyone knows exactly what they're doing. They're all like super professional, and yeah, it just goes without a hitch,
Yeah, it does. It is a well-oiled machine, like you say.
Yeah, it's really cool.
What's it like, to be part of that team? You mentioned Emma Payton, Laura Turner, obviously Laura Woods does the World Champs. I find the PDC and Sky Darts have just done it sort of seamlessly. There's been a bit, it's a positive shake-up in my opinion, and every single one of you adds value. What's it like to be a part of that team?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm only very, very new, to be honest. So if I was to continue as part of the team, I just it would be amazing. But Emma is a really, really talented broadcaster. Like what from me knowing a little bit about, what goes on behind the scenes and what she has to do in terms of presenting, but then having the knowledge of what to say and to say it sort of maybe off by heart and not reading it. There's no auto cue. It's incredible, and I said, wow, this, like, you're so good, regardless of gender now. Like, she's just phenomenal. And I was quite in awe, and I was thinking, oh my god, I could never do that. I'm happy in my little my reporter box, so yeah, just to sort of be, I suppose, in that area with those women, and Laura as well. And I know and she's like a brilliant commentator as well, and she's knowledgeable, and she's passionate, and she stands up with the guys, and it's great. It's lovely. And if there was to be some sort of women's evolution, it's nice to play a small part of it.
Oh no, brilliant. And I think the thing with Emma Payton as well is she had such big shoes to fill with Dave Clark. She's just the knowledge she's built over that short amount of time, I think is so professional, and you could tell she'd been there anchoring it for 20 years. It's fantastic what she's done now, I think.
Yeah, and no, honest to God, it's really admirable, because she's very just natural broadcaster. I was thinking, oh my God, I love what you do, and it's sort of like, I'd love to do. It feels like so stressful to even like do her job, and I'm just like, it's not that, oh my God, I would love to do that. It's more like, oh my God, I'd love to be able to do something like that, because it's honestly, like, she totally kicks ass like every single time she's on telly, and not only that, but she's goddamn beautiful as well. So
if we turn the focus then on to sort of specifically about Welsh darts,
sure.
Obviously Johnny is on cloud nine. He's unbeatable at the moment. And I saw you'd gone early Saturday night. You said Johnny to win the Worlds, and that was obviously before he'd won the World Series. So do you stand by that prediction?
Yes, I do. I do stand by it. I was kind of like, I was kind of thinking, right, he's either going to peak at the right time or just before. I don't know. I think the Grand Slam will be very telling. And I mean, on a more wider note, what I like about Johnny, right, is not that he's got great throwing ability or his darting finesse, right? But his mentality is just what stands so solid for me at the moment. He dares to believe he can, and he does. So I don't know. I'm kind of, I put it out there because I'm ballsy, and I thought, if he does, then whoop to me. I don't know. There's just something about like such a meteoric rise, and the story at the moment, and just the Welsh dart story at the moment is just is incredible. It's mind blowing.
It is, and I think going back to Johnny, it would take quite a drop off in his performance and a huge increase in anybody else's to even come to parity with him. So it's going to take a hell of a performance to knock him out in the Worlds, I would have thought.
I think the only person, I think the two people who I've got on my list to sort of make it up there is Gezi and Johnny. And like, you could say that we're being a bit biased, but I think they are the two informed players at the moment. I had a lovely chat with Johnny actually at the Grand Prix, and he's a lovely guy. He's a very sweet natured, just gentle mannered,
Yeah.
And he was talking about his family actually, and the sacrifices sort of. And he made a comment about, the trophies are awesome, and the rankings are great, and people, see him smiling on stage, and that winning moment and the confetti falling down and stuff. But he said, oh, but these people, they see how much money I earn and see me on the rankings, but they don't know that I've missed my children's birthdays
exactly.
last 2 months. They don't see you living out of a hotel, out of a suitcase. And it really sort of struck me that. So I don't know, I think I'm happy that all the hard work has paid off, the dedication, the sacrifices are paying off. He's had one hell of a massive year, isn't he? Like we've all had tough times the last year. So I think, I think he's on this journey, and he's on this wave, and I think, gosh, let's just hope he doesn't peak too early,
Yeah.
and he just drops off just before, because the next 2 months are just chaotic, aren't they? And these guys are just so fatigued. I literally don't know how they do it. Like Gaz mentioned, he's going on holiday now, so all for that, and why not?
Yeah. You've obviously, interviewed him on numerous occasions, worked with him at corporate events. What is the real Gezi like? Because I think he's very much misunderstood.
Oh, definitely misunderstood. Gezi has always been himself, and unapologetically so. And sometimes I think he even tames himself down. Like, he sent out that Instagram yesterday. He's probably not being himself too much because of the criticism he gets, or because obviously, we saw him at the Grand Prix, and that was so horrible to watch, wasn't it? When
it was.
He was getting booed so much. And even just to be there and witness it, it wasn't nice at all. But PDC and Sky, I think, have built him up to be this big character. And why not? Because this is the sport we all love, and we all love these big characters, and they want him to be this household name. But he doesn't shy away from emotion on the Oche. He's come from this big sporting background, rugby, and he's just brought that sort of mentality onto the Oche. He does claim it's his rugby background a bit.
Yeah.
But I think maybe the fans had come around to his untoward ways. I think maybe people forgot that they started to like him again before lockdown, and then lockdown, we all came out of lockdown and they were all booing him again. But for me, his darting skill purely just does the talking now. He's made it okay to show emotion on the Oche. He's made it okay to show personality, the laying it all on the line for the big win. And I kind of feel that Gezi is maybe been that trailblazer a little bit. Let's face it, £500,000 is at the finish line. Who can blame the players when they're
exactly.
feeling a bit on fire? And the darting game has been more exciting than it's ever been. And look at Gezi's story. He's still relatively young. How long has he had his tour card for? 7 years or something? Yeah. He's really had this blockbuster story, full of drama, full of highs and lows, but an success story against all odds. And I think when you've got a story like that, people love to be on a different side to you, and sometimes I kind of wanted to say to Gezi, it's not the case that all press is good press, whether it's bad or good, but people are talking about you either way, and you've become this huge personality within darts,
Yes.
And I think it's great, but people have got to remember, it's great for us. We're punters of the darts, and we like these big characters, and it's great for us, right? And we love the drama, and I do. I'm a rebel at heart, and I love to see that. But I think working more intently with it, and actually knowing Gezi as a person is where you've got to sort of take a step back and realize, this is a human being, and he's got feelings.
Exactly.
And I think we all saw that the other day. I think, if he's being honest with himself, whether he had a bad bit of tennis elbow or whatever he had, when he walked off and then wouldn't come off stage, I think he literally just had to take a couple of moments to think, I can't do that. We've all been there when we are almost at breaking point.
Exactly,
and I think, I mean, who knows? I'm just talking my opinion here, but you could just, It was not nice, you know.
Because I tell you where I am. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of those people that are booing in, and I'm thinking, what's the reason? You know, if it's the over celebrating, well, sorry, there are people like Aspinall, you got Van Gerwyn, they're
Thank
giving
you.
it as large as Gerwyn.
I
So
I remember Dill when, so you know, when I first went to Ali Pali, he wasn't you know, Van Gogh wasn't sort of a big name then, but I remember a couple of years after, I'm thinking maybe 2012, Gezi, sorry, not Gezi, Michael Van Gerwen was the new name, the big name. He was this young, fresh player.
yeah.
And I remember people loved him because he gave it some on stage, and people loved him because he had these like ridiculous like facials when he'd like go, you know, and people loved that. But for some reason, you know, it all stems back to when he had that Barney with Gary Anderson on stage, and you know, Gary, you know, and it's like you've got these two characters. You've got Gary, who is like this really respected darts player, and you know, he's won the world champs twice, and you know, he's, you know, a big key figure in darts. And then you've got this, you know, beefed up rugby player coming in and ruining the party, and you know, and I, you know, I think it stems from there, and ever since that he's had a target on his back. Thankfully, you know, he's managed to win titles, and he's a very, very talented player, because I don't think he would have lasted if he was sort of, you know, mid rankings and stuff like that, because people would just be relentless, wouldn't they?
Oh, they would. And I think there was an issue, you know, with when he first came over, and you know, that line he used in his post match, "I'm pinching money from the professionals' pockets." And you know, I think it was apparent there were some top 10 players who absolutely despised him, thinking, "Who's this bloody rugby player coming in here, thinking he's all this?" And you know, I don't know. I think the players have come round. There's a lot of respect for Gerwyn from what I can see from social media and interviews. People are saying, you know, give the guy a break. He's our world number one. He's our poster boy.
Yeah, I think, I would say now, I think the players are all very much respectful of him. Definitely. It's just the odd, it's just, you know, when one fan boos, the other person will. Yeah. You know, because all of us, we've all made this dart spectacle into a big panto, into a big theatre, and that's what sells the tickets. That's why we watch it, because it's drama, it's sporting. It's like football, isn't it? You know, it's like, exactly, yeah. Why, you know, we'll boo someone, you know, we're all guilty of it. We'll boo someone, and I won't even know them, but I'll just join in with the panto, because you do. Yeah. You know, exactly, I think that's partly to blame for maybe Gez. He's sort of painted as the big bad wolf, isn't he? You know.
Exactly. Hopefully, you know, in the busy few weeks to come now, he's obviously taking some time off, ready for the Slam, which is a tournament he always thrives in the format, doesn't he? So hopefully we'll see him back to his
favorite one. So I mean, it would, I mean, can you just, if Gezi wins the Slam, and then you've got Johnny playing on top form as well, and he has a good run at the Slam as well, it's just, I mean, the worlds are going to be just super exciting.
It is because the way it is now, if you look at the rankings as we speak today, you know, you're looking at a quarter final between Gerwyn and Johnny at the Worlds. You know, number 1, number 8 would meet. So, something to keep an eye on. So, I was
kind of almost be a bit unfair, wouldn't it, if they were in the quarters together? You'd be like, no, we go a little bit higher.
You know, I don't know how you feel, but I absolutely hate it when they play each other. You know, I've been on radio a few times looking ahead, previewing the matches, and people say, "Oh, who do you want to win?" You know, and the answer I come up with is, it's like, you know, being a father to 2 children, it's like asking you to choose which one's your favorite child. It's hate. I just hate it. I just want it all done. Whoever wins, go through. I just love it when they can play against, you know, somebody from a different country where I can take sides, then, sort of thing, you know.
I know. It's funny, it is, because I mean, I try to stay neutral when it's the 2 Welsh players, but it's I feel bad for them. You know, I feel bad that they've got to play each other. They're good buddies. Like, do you know what I mean? So, like, I feel like, as I said before, like, and I'm not saying that Gezi's not like this, but Johnny's just so lovely, and it's like sometimes I don't feel he has the, like, you know, bark of a dog, you know, and he's just so lovely. And it's like, oh God, he must hate like getting one up over Gez, you know, and then Gezi's just all fired up, and he's like, but it's exciting. Welsh darts has never been this at this higher point, and it's just growing and growing.
Yeah.
You know, it's exciting for you. You've got your work cut out for you for the next year.
Well, you know, something that started like a hobby 2.5 years ago is turning into like a full-time sort of job. You know, I never really thought it would get this big. People say, "Oh, did you have a crystal ball? Did you know these boys were going to turn into stars overnight?" And you know, I just felt they weren't getting the, you know, the coverage they deserved. I felt the Welsh media were quite poor in what they were reporting. You know, these boys were winning European tours, winning Players Championships, and there was nothing about it on the radio.
Yeah.
So hence the reason I got going, really.
Yeah, and like, you know, big up to Sian who works with you as well. I met her at the Grand Slam, and she's lovely girl. I was going to say gal, not guy. Lovely gal. And you know, if it wasn't for her, I believe, you know, covering it off her own back, and you know, paying for a hotel on her own, you know, people who follow BBC or who you know, who are on that platform wouldn't know about the successes at the Grand Prix, you know.
Exactly.
So yeah, but, you know, it's those, you know, as I said before, she's creating those opportunities, and she's putting herself out there, and it's like we've all got to do our bit, you know. And but you know, there's that new Gezi documentary coming out, but I don't think that's ITV, isn't it? That's not a Welsh thing.
No.
So you know, I even said last year, like when Gezi had won the Worlds, I was like, someone should follow him now for the entire year, right? And do like a documentary, and then if he wins it again, or if he doesn't, but you know, then you've got all these other angles like Johnny coming in and you know, and put it out on BBC in January and see how it goes, you know.
Exactly, yeah. That kind of ties in nicely to the next question, really. The BBC sports personality, the Welsh version.
Yeah.
You've obviously done a lot of online work at the event over the last few years, and I think we had a chat, didn't we, back in the summer when on Twitter I posted saying, well, that's nailed on. There'll be a Welsh winner this year with a surname Price. You know, Gerwyn with his world #1 status, world champion, and then Lauren Price winning the boxing gold. But do you think the ferret is making a late move for the Welsh sports personality?
Yeah, he's put his name in the mix as well, hasn't he? Do you know what? It's funny because I remember before. So Gezi must have been invited to the sports personality awards, right? And I interviewed him, obviously, because I was like, right, Gezi's here, we'll interview him. And I remember I put a photo up on on Twitter saying, "Is me with next year's sports personality of the year," and people went nuts because I was probably still on my Twitter. People were like, "Darts isn't a sport. Oh my god, I can't." But people actually thought like he had won it or something, and people were like, "Oh, this is ridiculous. I can't believe they've given it to a darts player." But I think people are coming around to the fact that, you know, it's funny, isn't it? Like I think sports is sorry, I think darts is a sport. A sport, absolutely. And I think these guys should be recognized, rightfully so, within sort of, you know, the sports personality. I think possibly it could go to Lauren. She's phenomenal, you know, and what she's done, that Olympic gold medal is absolutely amazing. But I think, you know, there should definitely be recognition for the Welsh boys, and Johnny and Gezi, rightly so. I know Gezi obviously won the Worlds, and you know, I say obviously he's won the Worlds, and then he's won so many other things. It just feels like Johnny's just like come gate crashing through like a ninja, and it's just like picked up loads more. But it's probably even Stevens now in terms of titles this year, is it?
It is, yeah. Well, it's really close, yeah. You know, on 4 TV titles, there are only 4 people who've ever done that, and that's Taylor, Gary Anderson, and Van Gerwen, I think, and now Johnny. So
I mean, so he makes a big case to sort of be included in those. But I mean, come on. Could we have 2 Welsh darts players in the nominees for the Welsh Sports Personality of the Year? That's very unheard of.
It'd be fantastic. It'd be absolutely fantastic.
And also, like you say, if Johnny goes in, obviously Gezi has to go in. If Gezi goes in, should Johnny go in? It's one of those things, isn't it? It's like, or do they just put Gezi in because he won the World? I don't know.
Exactly. Right, we're obviously like a passionate bunch, you know, from Wales, and I was just interested to know, What does it mean to you to be Welsh? Sort of representing Cardiff as your hometown, representing Wales, representing your family. On these bigger stages in world darts, obviously on the radio. What does that mean to you to be sort of Welsh and being broadcast all over the world?
I love it. I love it. It's given me, being Welsh has given me a lot of advantage and a lot of opportunities, as when I was on Capital, obviously I broadcast to South Wales. When I moved to Radio X, what was really apparent was that Cardiff in particular, or the Welsh people, they look after their own, they've got your back, so to speak. And we're a very small nation, Wales, but we've got the heart and pride of a continent,
Yeah, exactly.
and that's genuinely how I feel. So I'm really proud to sort of, I guess, to be flying the flag, and to be and to be doing it, I guess, on big stages. I never sort of like to big myself up or anything like that. But I suppose if someone was to say, "Oh, you're doing it, you're doing good for Wales and stuff," then that's awesome, And it's nice to be, rep in Wales, and I will always make sure that people know I'm from Wales, and I always make anecdotes about being from Wales, and I'll always make comments and remarks, and I'll make sure people know I'm from Wales. So I think it was Gezi, you said, "Oh, wouldn't it be good if it was me, you, and Johnny on the stage at the Grand Prix final?" I said, "Oh my God, it'd be awesome," So, but being Welsh is brilliant because we're chilled, we're a very passionate, patriotic nation, and we can make fun of ourselves, we can laugh at ourselves, we don't take ourselves too seriously.
Exactly, yeah.
It's good to be Welsh.
Yeah. Before we sort of wrap up, I've just got two more questions.
Sure.
What does the future sort of hold for you then, Polly? Kind of what are your goals moving forward? Where do you see you going next?
Gosh, I mean, I've been learning recently to, as you said at the very beginning, I sort of got my fingers in a lot of pies, but I'm learning, because obviously I've got a daughter now. And I don't have a lot of free time anymore. I'm learning to sort of put boundaries in, and it's breaking a habit of a lifetime, isn't it? Because before COVID, before my daughter, I'd say yes to everything, and I'd take every opportunity, and I've always lived by that. So as I say, breaking a habit of a lifetime, to sort of say to people politely, "I decline on this occasion. I can get someone else to do it for you, but I can't do it this time." And it breaks me, it's doing that, because I love my job and I love getting out there and doing stuff. But I hope to just have peace of mind, happiness, and I know that's really cliche, I'm very cliche, but it's true. I just hope that I'm doing something that I love, whether it's darts. I hope to be working in radio. That is, it's in my blood. Like I love it. That's what makes me tick. So I hope I'm working in radio, and I hope, it'd be lovely to sort of synchronize my radio work and darts work. If Sky will keep me on and stuff, that would just be the dream, wouldn't it? Do a couple of shifts on the radio a week, and on the Sky tournaments, work for them there when Michael Bridges is off, and I can fill in for him.
Oh, brilliant. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, and I'm really, really grateful for you coming on. I've been meaning to get you on for such a long time, but I finally plucked up the courage and asked you. But I'm sure all the listeners,
anytime.
All the listeners, everybody who's watching this on video, will have really enjoyed the chat, and we wish you all the best in the future, whatever that may hold.
Thank you. I babble on a lot, and I'm not very articulate, even though I do talk for a living. So hopefully it's not been too boring and waffly.
You've been brilliant. Thanks a lot, Polly. Cheers.
Pleasure.